Good Wednesday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Browns with a day off of the practice field, getting ready for that first preseason game Saturday against the Green Bay Packers. Still some news in what has become a fluid situation with Brandon Aiyuk trying to get traded out of San Francisco. So Adam Schefter reports that the Patriots have decided not to explore further trade possibilities with the 49ers regarding Brandon Aiyuk. Patriots are excited about their young receivers and want to focus on them. Kyle Shanahan, head coach of the 49ers, was asked about the Brandon Aiyuk situation and if he expects to get it resolved soon.
No, I mean, you always want it to be badly, but this stuff does take time, and every day I hope it gets resolved. But I have no timetable on it. Like, didn't surprise me coming into this. Going about coaching our team, getting them ready for week one, and hopefully it'll get resolved though sooner than later. Brandon's a great player, so it's real hard to be better when you lose a great player. So we got to look into anything. We got to understand the situation we're in, what that looks like, and that does take time. So hopefully it'll all work out best for him and best for us in the long run.
He has the permission to talk to other teams, is that correct?
Yes.
Disappointment it's reached this point. I know it could be resolved, but
I mean, it's been at this point for a little bit, so it's nothing really new to me. I mean, you're always disappointed when you can't keep a hold of all your players or it's not going exactly right. I mean, I don't like losing anybody, so that's why I'm hoping it does work out here. But right now, we don't have that solved yet, so I hope it does.
With that, let's welcome in Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Mary Kay, you can tell, as you might expect, a guy that's in training camp, not practicing. It sounds like it's weighing a little bit on Kyle Shanahan, as you would expect it would. Let me ask you this. We've heard reports that he doesn't want to come to Cleveland. My read of the situation is he's kind of trying to force his way to where he wants to go, which appears to be Pittsburgh. Is that just your thoughts?
Well, those kinds of things can change on a dime. I have heard and had been hearing that he wanted to go to Pittsburgh. That was one of the first teams he identified along with the Commanders. So if he does end up coming to Cleveland, it will be something that he probably does have to wrap his mind around a little bit and make sure that other people in his life are comfortable with the situation. Sometimes it's not always what it seems, and I don't think we know the full story yet of what's really going on here. So I don't want to just confirm or say or agree with the notion that he doesn't want to play for the Cleveland Browns. I don't really know that that's the case. It could be a little bit more complicated than that, but certainly we do know that he has wanted to play for Pittsburgh. But it's not a simple transaction. There has to be two different things going on here. First, the team has to agree with the 49ers on trade compensation, which the Browns have reportedly already done that, according to Matt Miyako of NBC Sports Bay Area. And then also they have to work out the contract terms with his agent, and I believe the Browns have already done that too. So the deal is in place with Cleveland. We know the Patriots pulled out, and if he wants to be a Cleveland Brown, he really just has to give it the green light. And, I do think that he's probably maybe holding out hope right now that the Steelers come through and give San Francisco what they want. But the thing that makes the Browns situation attractive to the 49ers is that they can plug and play Amari Cooper in there. That's what they really want. Now, are the Browns absolutely willing to do that? I know they don't want to give up Amari Cooper, but in the interest of maybe getting this deal done, I'm sure he would have to be part of it. So lots of pieces and parts still moving here.
Yeah, and as you said, it can change 20 minutes from now. I know you wrote an article about it. What do you think it would take to land Brandon Aiyuk in a trade from the 49ers? And then you also addressed this on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. What do the Aiyuk trade rumors potentially do with Amari Cooper?
Well, first of all, what I think it would take would be a contract close to $30 million, maybe not for the life of the contract, but at least in the upfront years of the contract, that he'd have to be making close to $30 million, because we know that that's what he's asking for from the 49ers. Certainly he's going to want that from whatever team that he goes to. And then from a trade compensation standpoint, I do think that it would take Amari Cooper, but I don't think that would be enough because he's heading into the final year of his contract. They'd have to give up something else. And I'm sure the next place they would look after that first round pick that the Browns are not going to want to give up would be the second round pick. So Amari, a second round pick, and maybe some change. We'll see. But again, it might never get to that point. We might never know because he might end up either staying in San Francisco or going to Pittsburgh.
So the other thing that comes to mind when you think of this, if you remember the Deshaun Watson trade negotiations, he wasn't going to Cleveland. He was going here. Then all of a sudden he miraculously ends up going to Cleveland. So there was that kind of dynamic there. And I know the reason I bring that up is you wrote an article just about the salary ranks, after everybody went crazy with the contract that the Browns gave Deshaun Watson. And you look at it now, and it's the 10th salary in relative to average annual value for quarterbacks. It's a pretty good sign that Andrew Berry kind of understands the marketplace.
Yeah, he really does. And it's why he got out in front on the Jerry Jeudy contract, knowing that the receiver market was about to explode and that many players, many receivers were going to get north of 30, which of course I think is really what Brandon Aiyuk also wants to do. Right now there are 4 in that category. But yes, the Deshaun Watson contract at $46 million a year doesn't look as just off the charts as it did back only 2 years ago in 2022, when for a period of time it was the number 1 at $46 million a year. Now it's $55 million a year. 3 players are tied for that average, and Deshaun has slipped down to number 10 at 46 in only 2 years. So the quarterback market has gone off the rails. The receiver market has gone off the rails as well. And the Browns are usually right out in front of this sort of thing, and they know how to handle the money.
And I would expect quarterback and wide receiver money to continue to go up because the salary cap is going to go up. It's a percentage of the gross revenues. You add in Netflix games and you add in redone the expansion to 18 regular season games probably adds 2 more weeks. The salary cap is going to continue to go up.
It will continue to go up. And again, the Browns always take the long-term view. That is exactly why they did what they did with Jerry Jeudy. But when you look at the Brandon Aiyuk versus Amari Cooper situation, people have asked me, is that an upgrade? It's not necessarily that it's an upgrade for this year. It's really looking, again, in the long term and seeing that you could have a receiver in his prime under contract for the next 5 years. Whereas, are you really going to want to pay Amari Cooper $28 million a year for the next 4 years when he just turned 30 this year? And of course, next June will be turning 31. So it's really about getting a little bit younger at the position if you're going to pay the big money like that.
Yeah, I think relative to Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy is young as well. So you would have your top 2 guys, assuming you're able to get the thing done with Aiyuk, you would get younger at the core for your quarterback who you're building this offense around.
Yes, absolutely. And they are in their Super Bowl window. And this way they would be able to stay in their Super Bowl window for the next 3, 4 or 5 years or whatever the case may be. So that's what this is all about. It's not saying that Brandon Aiyuk is better than Amari Cooper. We all know how good Amari Cooper is. And for this particular year, he might be better than Brandon Aiyuk because he has that chemistry and that timing down with Deshaun Watson already. But this is about sustainable success, building for the future, and getting a young guy under contract at that money as opposed to a 30-year-old.
This is one of your Hey Mary Kays. How likely would it be for the Browns to trade Jack Conklin, and what do you think a deal like that might look like?
Right now, I just don't see that happening because they don't have either Jack or Jed Wills on the field yet. So they don't have one of those guys that they can plug in there at left tackle. And Jed is slated for that spot, but Jack can also play over there. So as soon as those 2 guys are healthy, we'll have a better idea of who's going where. But because there have been so many injuries at tackle, I would have to think that they want to keep those top 3 guys, especially because they're trying to protect their big $230 million investment in Deshaun Watson. You don't want to mess around with that. So someone would really have to knock their socks off, I think, to come and get Jack Conklin. Right now, I think they're just trying to get these guys as healthy as they can.
Another one of your Hey Mary Case. I'm curious as to your thoughts on this. What do you think Nick Chubb's timeline for returning is this season?
Well, he looked certainly very good, running very fast sprints and cutting and doing agility work at the Greenbrier right there in front of Jimmy Haslam. It was good to see him doing that kind of good work and coming along so well. So right now they're leaving open the possibility that he can play in one of the first 4 games of the season. If he gets activated by the end of camp on August 27th, it means they really are thinking that perhaps Nick Chubb can see some action in one of those first 4 games. So we'll know. I mean, time is starting to wind down. That's about 3 weeks left to figure out if Nick is going to be activated or if he's going to start the season on injured reserve.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE, I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Greenback snow, Skrilla, chips, bread and mold, cheddar, butter, lewd and scratch, find the letters, make a match, lettuce, gravy, game on the back for $30. That's a wrap. There's many words for cash, no doubt, but there's only one $30 cash word. Check it out. Cash word from Ohio Lottery. It's $30 show. Cash word, it's fun to go with millions in prizes, don't you know?
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Rico. I'm calling regarding the Aiyuk trade drama. You know, it would be great to acquire such a talent, but at the end of the day, it truly is all about the quarterback position. I mean, you don't have to look any further than the Chiefs. They won the Super Bowl with probably the worst wide receiver group in the league. Why? Because of the greatness of their quarterback. Yes, on paper, Aiyuk would probably help this team immensely. But if Watson regains his previous form or is even better, then it probably doesn't even matter, especially since we will keep Cooper. Also, Aiyuk might not even want to come here. So like Myles Garrett said, we want volunteers, not hostages. Thanks. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Mary Kay, we talked about that in the first segment. We'll wait and see whether Brandon Aiyuk really wants to be here or not. Don't want to jump to any conclusions. It is about Deshaun Watson, I think. If he plays like he's capable of playing, this team's really good.
Yeah, they'll be very, very good. And we've seen him throw the ball really well in training camp. And then we have seen a few erratic throws. The last 2 days, I thought, were a little uneven for Deshaun Watson. But that's to be expected. He had surgery 8 months ago to repair his fractured shoulder socket and his torn labrum. And for anyone to think that you're just going to come in after that and it's just going to be an upward trajectory the whole time without one little hiccup here or there or one errant pass, then I think that's just kind of being unrealistic about the whole situation. It takes time to get all of that back. And I think he's still in that process right now. And he still has 4 weeks to go to make sure that everything feels great and looks great. And I think it's going to take that amount of time for him to really feel confident and ready to go out there and face those Cowboys.
So Albert Breer from Sports Illustrated tweeted this out. He was at Browns camp. Browns' hope is that the hire of Ken Dorsey as offensive coordinator will move their scheme forward the same way their division rival Ravens did, going from Marty Morningwig to Greg Roman to Todd Monken, the way that worked over the last 6 seasons. In other words, the idea was to add elements that could help diversify the offense in a way that helps the quarterback take the next steps as a player and ultimately get closer to maximizing his talents. That's a great way of describing it. I see that. Is that kind of do you agree with that assessment?
Well, certainly they hope that Ken Dorsey can get the same kind of success out of Deshaun that he did out of Cam Newton and Josh Allen. He's really great working with those quarterbacks. So yes, I do think that that's a major reason why Ken is here, and that's what the hopes are. But also, he's not calling plays, and I think a lot of people tend to forget that, including some of the players for the Cleveland Browns who stand up there and tell us that Ken Dorsey is calling the plays. So I think that's something, to kind of keep an eye on. But Deshaun Watson seems to really like working with Ken Dorsey. Ken's brought a lot of interesting and cool concepts to the offense, and it's coming together on the field.
So you've been at every practice, Greenbrier as well as in Berea. What has been your impressions of the offense? Can you get a sense of it yet, or is it still kind of too under wraps, if you will?
Well, the problem is they haven't had their full complement of players on offense yet. There hasn't really been a practice yet, except for yesterday, where you got to see Amari, Elijah, and Jerry Jeudy all out on the field at the same time. There's only been one of those practices. So they need to do more of that. They need to make sure that they've got their starting trio out there. And then when you go to 4 wide, you're going to get Sed out on the field. And then David Bell has done a really nice job as well. So we really haven't seen that. And of course, we haven't seen Nick Chubb out there yet. But for the most part, they have what they need in the running game until Nick is ready to go. But I mean, it's looked good for the most part. Yes, they have it under wraps to a degree, but you can kind of get an idea of where they're going with this.
Who stood out? As I mentioned, you've been at every practice. Who have you kind of went, he's having a real nice camp the first couple of weeks?
Well, certainly Sed Tillman is one that has stood out for sure. And then Denzel and Martin Emerson have really stood out on the defensive side of the ball. I think Mike Hall's coming around and he's doing a really nice job. Let's see. Also on the offensive side of the ball, there's a young guy to keep an eye on by the name of Matt Landers. Maybe he'll end up on the practice squad. Every time I look up, he's catching a deep ball. He's somebody that you might want to invest a little bit of time and energy into developing, because there might be something there. He's 6'4", 200, and he runs a 4.37. He's got a dynamite size speed combo, and I think it's worth looking at.
So this is from PFF Browns. They tweet out, David Njoku avoided 22 tackles last year, 5 more than any other tight end in the NFL. And you and I have talked about David Njoku for a couple of years. Can you see them kind of featuring him this year even a little bit more?
Well, he's been featured a ton already, but I think he will be targeted a whole lot again in this coming year. Now, there might not be enough footballs to go around because, of course, Amari needs targets and Elijah needs targets and Jerry Jeudy's going to get his targets. And you've got Cedric Tillman too, but David will certainly get his. I can see him building on the excellent Pro Bowl year he had last year. And also, I've been saying this for a couple of years, and it's going to be true one of these years that he catches those 8 touchdown passes.
I know Jerry Jeudy hasn't practiced a lot. What have you seen from him, though, when he's been on the practice field?
Good speed, good separation, really nice route running. It's a really polished skill set. And I think he's going to be really good for this team. And you can start to see that the lights are coming on between him and Deshaun Watson a little bit. He'll be running some of those choice routes. And he said he's run them all his life, so that shouldn't be a problem for him to run those option routes and have the football acumen to know how the defender is playing him and to make the right choice there and be on the same page with the quarterback. So he's going to be possibly the featured choice route runner if he has enough time to practice and get up to speed on it. But so far, it looks like he's coming along very well in that regard.
And before we go to break, Elijah Moore's a guy that hasn't gotten talked up like last year because of, Jerry Jeudy and some of the other things. How has he looked going through the early part of training camp?
Well, he suffered a concussion or got put in the concussion protocol on the second last day at the Greenbrier. So he's working his way back out of the protocol, and he was in team drills yesterday, so that was a good sign. And this would have been if it's a concussion per se, sometimes it's a stinger and it's not necessarily a concussion. But if this was a concussion, it's his second in a Browns uniform. The first came last year, December 29th, against the Jets, his former team. But he bounced back pretty quickly from that one. So we'll have to see how that goes. But Elijah has been very active. He's been doing cool things, coming out of the backfield again and just doing some trick plays and being used in multiple ways. And I think he's really poised to have a nice year.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I'm going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll turn our attention to the Packers preseason game coming up Saturday. Sports for CLE, I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. New defensive tackle Quentin Jefferson was asked his first impressions of playing alongside Myles Garrett.
He's a freak. Like, I mean, I've been around some special guys who even had like crazy work ethic and just were talent, but like his talent is like I never seen anything like it. A guy that big, moving that fast, can bend like he can, and not only is he a freak, but he's intelligent, super high football IQ. Like he was like made in a lab. Like he's lit. Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. It's definitely insane.
Mary Kay, it's interesting hearing guys that have been in the league so long react to watching Myles Garrett in person.
Yeah, they love when they get around Myles. They love to see what he's got and just how quick he is off the ball, what a freak he is, the bend he has off the edge. And I saw Quentin Jefferson, after he left, he got a little dinged in practice, and he went over there and spent the rest of the practice on the sidelines with Myles. Those two guys are getting along really, really well. And you can tell that Myles likes a veteran guy like that he can learn something from. And I'm sure it's vice versa. But there's a nice chemistry on the defensive line, and I think Quentin has really added to that.
So the Browns gave us a sneak preview, if you will, of new weight room and some of the other things that they're using out in Berea as they have expanded these. And it was relative to a Players Association poll that they took. And boy, did they do a nice job. They have the rooms that have the 25-yard wide screens in addition to this weight room. I'm curious, you talked about it on your Orange and Brown podcast. How are the Browns using these weight rooms to their advantage?
Well, first of all, as you can see there, they look right out over the practice field, so they consider it to be an extension of the practice field. So if a guy needs to come in and stretch something out or work on something a little bit, he's really not missing a minute. He can come in and still be part of what's going out there on the practice field. And then you move into those experiential learning rooms. Instead of guys sitting in a classroom, stuck in a desk, trying to take notes, they're learning by standing up there, by doing it, by seeing it. They can visualize what they're doing. Then they can rep it over and over in their mind later because they saw it on the big screen. So I think the visual aspect of learning is going to be key for the Cleveland Browns this year. And the whole facility is great. Free agents are going to come in. They're going to love it. They're not going to get a D anymore on the weight room. This has not just been in response to that, but they've been building this for many years. And so now it's ready to go. And it's part of just a huge overhaul of all of Cross Country Mortgage Campus. It really is going to be a campus. They knocked down all of those houses, and there's going to be so much development over there. And I think that players are going to absolutely love it when it's all done.
So yesterday, Jameis Winston named the starter for the game against the Packers' first preseason game. What do you think went into that decision, and why do you think the Browns chose not to give 10 plays, 2 series, whatever, to Deshaun Watson?
Well, they didn't do it last year either. They really want to give him a chance to continue to rehab his arm, work on that arm, make sure that he's super confident and comfortable before he has to take any contact in a game or anything like that potentially. So I think if they do play him in the preseason, it will be in that Seattle game on August 24th. Crazy that we're going all the way out to Seattle for that game, but so be it. So I do think that there's a chance he played in this preseason finale last year, and that might happen again this year. It's not going to happen against the Vikings. That comes after 2 days of joint practices on the 14th and the 15th. So if anything, it will be in Seattle.
And again, it sounds like you wouldn't have gone with Watson if you were making the decision. It sounds like you wouldn't have had him playing in the first preseason game either. It sounds like you completely understand the line of thought with that.
Yeah, I do. I just don't necessarily know that he's 100% ready for that yet. I think he still needs to continue to build up confidence chips. He needs to hit some more of those long balls successfully. He needs to run a couple of 2-minute drills in practice. He needs to excel on the goal line against the Browns' first team defense. And I will say this, the Cleveland Browns defense is going to have him battle tested by the time he has to get out there against the Cowboys. Obviously, he's going against one of the best defenses in the NFL every day. Iron sharpens iron. And when he does get some of those defensive linemen back, like Z and Shelby Harris, and maybe even Dalvin Tomlinson at some point here before the season starts, then he's really going to have a chance to figure out the speed of the game again, figure out how quickly he has to get that ball out. And then, of course, it's got to go to the right place because you've got Martin Emerson waiting back there to smack it down. And you've got Denzel Ward back there waiting to pick it off. So, I think that Deshaun has a little ways to go. He has to build up the strength in his arm. He's got to build up the confidence, but he's got 1 month to do it, and I think he'll get there.
So we've heard starters will play 10 to 12 plays, something along those lines. Who are some guys that this first preseason game is important for, do you think?
Well, one of the places that you can look is the third quarterback position. I think you can look at Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Tyler Huntley and see that one of those guys might not make the team. Maybe both of them won't make the team. We'll have to see how it goes. I mean, they might just decide to keep 2 quarterbacks, but this should be interesting. Dorian looks really good. And then with Tyler, I just think that he's such a good weapon that I've been saying this, and it seems like people don't really seem to agree with me very much on this, but I feel like he can do something for your football team. I feel like, can he return kicks? Can he run for you out of the backfield? I don't know if he can catch the ball, but he just seems like he's an offensive weapon of some sort, or a special teams weapon that you might want to try to keep around if you possibly can. Don't know if they can afford to do it. Maybe somebody will have a quarterback injury in camp and they'll come calling for him and give you a draft pick. That's another way that you could go there. But that's one spot. And then back up, those final receiver spots are going to be interesting. You've got David Bell, you've got Michael Woods, you've got a number of guys there, Jamari Thrash. So you've got guys vying for that last receiver spot, and I think that's going to be quite a heated battle.
What are you paying attention to in the Packers game, and what are you most anxious to see first couple series at least of what when the starters are in there, if you will?
Well, I don't really know if Elijah is going to play or Jerry Jeudy is going to play, because those guys were kind of banged up. And I don't know if they want to trot them out there in this first game and risk that. So I can't honestly say that I'm going to see what I really want to see, and that is how the offense functions together as a whole. That's not going to be happening. So I probably will be watching more for how does Jameis function in the event that he's going to need to step in for Deshaun Watson at some point. How does he look when the lights are on? And then, of course, the backup quarterback competition, the third quarterback competition, and those receivers and, some of the defenders. There's not a lot of frontline defensive line guys. So you get to see Alex Wright. You get to see Isaiah McGuire. You're going to get to see Mike Hall, Siaki Ika. So these are some of the things to watch.
Are you curious to see which of the rookies are you most curious to see in game action based on what you've seen out at training camp?
Well, certainly Mike Hall. I think you want to see what Mike Hall can do. And I'm sure Zach Zinter, he'll probably get some playing time coming off of his injury. So that'll be interesting to watch. And then again, you've got Jamari Thrash out there. Miles Harden has made some noise a little bit in this training camp. So there will be plenty of those guys to watch. And, it's just a matter of keeping your eye on who are all the ins and outs in these preseason games.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. As always, thanks so much for the time on the inside. Appreciate it, Mary Kay.
Thanks for having me.
Mary Kay Cabot, make sure you check her out. Best Browns coverage, cleveland.com, as well as the pages of the Plain Dealer. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report, straight ahead. Stay with us on Sports for CLE. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. Browns on Sports for CLE. Kimberly Martin from ESPN, someone who covers the Browns regularly for ESPN. Talking about the Brandon Aiyuk trade situation earlier today on ESPN's Get Up.
Now the sense I'm getting is it's a matter of when this happens, not if this happens. Now, as you said, Schefter reported that the Patriots have bowed out. I'm told after talking to multiple sources that Brandon Aiyuk did not want to play for the Patriots, and he doesn't want to play for the Browns. And that's interesting because both of those teams made significant offers to get him. And when you look at the Browns, they also were in a similar situation with Deshaun Watson. They paid a lot of money to get him to Berea. If something happens like that, maybe he ends up in Cleveland, but as of right now, keep an eye on the Steelers. This does not feel like the Steelers team of old, how they're maneuvering. I think this is a team that understands that having non-losing seasons is not going to cut it in that division especially. So, Omar Khan, the GM, looking to do a little bit more wheeling and dealing. Justin Fields, they're not standing pat at that quarterback position. And Steelers are one of the teams that Brandon Aiyuk said, I want to play for. The other, the Commanders, who never came to the table. So that is interesting. If he wants to play in Washington, Washington doesn't come to the table. Do we see him say, you know what, that destination doesn't work out. Let me come back to San Francisco.
With that, let's welcome in Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Fred, when you listen to that, it may be a matter of, my read has been, he really wants to play for the Steelers. It goes back a little bit to him saying that even before the hold-in or whatever you want to call the situation with the contract. And he's trying to force his way to Pittsburgh. That's kind of my read of it.
Yeah, to me, it's a little corny. Besides the money, if you have the money, I don't know, maybe I'm out of things, but I don't think either the Patriots or the Steelers present the greatest opportunity with a much better quarterback situation than what he has with San Francisco or even the Browns. I don't know why he would dismiss the Browns if all things are equal, but we've had that in the past. So sometimes you feel like, this is a leverage situation because, Andrew Berry's aggressive and they've done this before, but I just think it's, all the way around, I don't like it. I just feel like if they could add Aiyuk but not give up Amari Cooper, that's a different situation. But I don't know if for this year you're putting them in a better position. Maybe long term you are, but you already have Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore and Cedric Tillman, who you're hoping develop and come on the scene this year. But the only proven receiver you have right now is Amari Cooper. And you bring in a guy, after missing the whole offseason, he just basically shows up and starts the season. I don't know, how that, you really don't know what you're getting. But, you do feel that the Steelers, you wouldn't like to see them come to the AFC, and especially to the AFC North, with the Steelers. So that sounds like if that's what he wants to do, and the 49ers decide they're going to accommodate him, they have him under contract. I mean, we've had guys on the Browns that wanted to be traded, and now they're prominent players on the team. So it sounds like it's a different situation with this guy. And do you want a guy like this on your team? The Browns have a culture they've developed with the players they have. I don't know. I mean, he's under a rookie contract like all of them are when they're drafted. And he's not willing to wait until the end of the season, and then get his big payday.
It sounds, if I'm reading you right, it sounds like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense from your perspective for the Browns to kind of bend over backwards for him this year. If he wants to come, fine, but is that
what you have with Amari Cooper? He's a 5-time Pro Bowler. He's had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. He just turned 30. I don't look at it. I realize when the guys get in their 30s, in the NFL, production starts to drop off. But, I don't think, he's over the hill. I think that this can affect, the mood, the team. We talked to the coaches and some of the players yesterday, and they said, "Oh, we're blocking it out and all that." But it's gotta affect you as a human being. When you just said you wanted to finish your career here, after he said he would never hold out, even when he was threatening to hold out down at Greenbrier, and he just I really think he wants to be here, and I really think that he feels like he's got a good thing going. If you can give up an Elijah Moore or somebody like that, or maybe not frontline players, then I'd be more interested. If it comes down to money, money is, they're all going to get paid, and you have to do it with somebody. Whether you're going to extend Cooper after this year or let him go, you probably need to get another younger wide receiver in the draft. But if you trade away, your first round pick again, it depends on, what you have to give up. But with money, I think that Andrew Berry and Jimmy Haslam have been able to accommodate. So if the guy doesn't want to come, you don't want to take him, and trade for him, if that's the situation. So I don't know. The sooner it gets resolved and gets behind, it is a distraction, I think, for everybody involved, because the media needs to ask questions just because that's the job, of it. And I think the sooner they can just focus on the season, the better.
This is from Sharp Football Analysis. Top NFL players returning from injury in 2024. They got the Browns, Nick Chubb. Browns struggled without their star running back, averaging just 3.9 yards per carry. 23rd in points per drive as 5 different starting quarterbacks tried to command the offense. In his first 6 years of his career, Chubb averaged 5.3 yards per rushing attempt, good for 7th best in NFL history, 1 spot ahead of Jim Brown. Also, Jack Conklin, last 3 seasons, 2-time Pro Bowler, has played just 22 games, sat out 39. Conklin has been the subject of trade rumors, speculation. He could be on the move after DeJuan Jones' performance last year. Conklin did outperform Jones as a pass blocker on PFF and remains a superior run blocker for an offense that will hopefully be centered around a healthy Nick Chubb. 2 things. You point out the Browns rushing. A lot of that was because you didn't have Jack Conklin, Jed Wills, and DeJuan Jones for a significant chunk of that. So I get it, but there was a lot of injuries that are getting overlooked in that.
Yeah, I mean, your top 3 tackles. I realized DeJuan Jones played really well as a rookie at right tackle, and you'd hate to put him back on the bench, but you sign Conklin to a big contract, and somebody would have to absorb that contract if you decide to trade him, or you're going to have to eat some of it. And you don't know Jedrick Wills. We've seen Jedrick Wills at least on the field during training camp. We've seen Jones has been practicing since the beginning, but we have not seen Jack Conklin on the field as of yet. And I know he posted that he got cleared back before training camp. I don't really know what's going on with him. You would think that he would be showing up pretty soon, being off as long as he has. So then you can make the case you lost your top three tackles. Do you feel that you can trade one of them, even if you decide to start DeJuan Jones and Jedrick Wills? I mean, Conklin's a pretty good insurance policy, albeit a hefty one. So they just, yeah, they have decisions to make. I think really it comes down to, if you made a trade for Aiyuk, that's where it makes sense maybe to trade Conklin, and draft picks, stuff like that. But as an asset that maybe you have depth at. But as far as I think Nick Chubb's ahead of what they projected, even though we don't really know what they've never really give us a timetable with him. But I've seen him run. I saw him run again 2 days ago and pulling weights on a sled and doing things beyond sprinting. We saw him sprinting, running really fast. And even now he's doing some zigzagging and hopping. So I think he's coming along real well. They're just being ultra slow with him. He's out there every day pretty much on the field with the running back. So you can tell he's chomping at the bit. I don't know about Conklin, It seemed like Chubb had much more serious injury, but we haven't really seen much with Conklin. So it's anybody's guess what happens with him.
Fred Greetham, senior analyst from the Orange and Brown Report. Now I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out, other side of the break. We'll talk a little bit about Michael Hall and what Fred has seen from him during training camp. Sports for CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Cash, moolah, greenbacks, toes, Skrilla, chips, bread and mold, cheddar, butter, lewd and scratch. Find the letters, make a match. Lettuce, gravy, game on the back for $30. That's a wrap. There's many words for cash, no doubt, but there's only one $30 cash word. Check it out. Cash word from Ohio, lottery. It's $30 show. Cash word, it's fun to go with millions of prizes, don't you know?
We continue talking Browns with Fred Greetham, senior analyst from the Orange and Brown Report. Fred, I know you wrote an article, why Michael Hall Jr. feels like he's ready to contribute in his rookie year. Take us through that and kind of what you've seen.
Well, first of all, because they've had some mounting injuries on the defensive tackle position, even defensive line in general. Dalvin Tomlinson's still on the PUP list after having surgery. Shelby Harris has not practiced since the Greenbrier. Don't really know what's wrong with him. Saw Quentin Jefferson go down and leave practice early yesterday. Maurice Hurst has been out there every day, and Siaki Ika, but Michael Hall's been getting a lot of reps just because the sheer numbers guys have been down. And in Jim Schwartz's defense, especially with the defensive line, he really likes to rotate 8, 9 guys at edge rusher and defensive tackle in the interior. So I just think that from talking to players like Zadarius Smith and Quentin Jefferson and some of the other ones that he's really showing up. and I just think that they drafted him for a specific role to be a guy that could be, rush the passer from the inside. And it might not be your traditional nose tackle where you're getting double teams. The idea is the double teams are going to Zadarius Smith, Myles Garrett, Obo Okoronkwo, and a guy like Dalvin Tomlinson can eat up blockers along with Shelby Harris. And Mike Hall can get one-on-one with a center or guard, and they like their chances, him getting after the quarterback because of his quickness and his first step.
So you've been at every practice, Greenbrier, Berea. Who's impressed you? Who have you looked at and said, man, this guy's doing pretty well so far?
Yeah, there's so many guys out there, but, Matt Landers is somebody that really is kind of like the Austin Watkins of a year ago. Sure, he haven't got to preseason games, but he's a guy you can watch. you can see his speed. I think at the combine when he came out a couple years ago, it was about 4.35, and he was like the third fastest there. Tall, lanky young man. He's got behind defensive backs and made some plays, but Cedric Tillman continues to make plays. He had 2 touchdowns yesterday. Jameis Winston aired out a deep ball that he ran under for a touchdown, got behind the DB. And Deshaun Watson also hit him down the seam for a touchdown. They're counting on him, and I think right now he's definitely established himself as the number 4 receiver. And I think he has a chance, to get a lot of catches this year, with the offense they're running. So those guys stand out. It's hard to pick out linemen because, they haven't really been hitting. But I'd have to think about that. I would say that those 2 receivers stand out. The little we've seen of Judy, he just came back this week. You can see the explosiveness there. Aiden Robbins, undrafted running back. He's big. And, I think that he'll get to play a lot in the preseason. So you might see him, on the practice squad. I mean, other than that, pretty much everything's expected. I mean, they got a lot of frontline guys. I mean, Myles Garrett, when he came back, I think he's wreaked havoc ever since he's been back in 2 or 3 days, had sacks several times, and those are expected. But, all in all, David Njoku's had a great camp. He looks really good. So, and Deshaun Watson is actually, I think he's played well. He's been out there every day. They gave him 1 rest day, but, he seems to be rounding into shape. Had a little rougher day yesterday, but still made some plays. So, I mean, it'll be interesting, how they work him in the preseason. He's not going to play this week. You think he was going to get a little work, but next week the Vikings are coming in for 2 days of scrimmaging. And in the past, when they scrimmaged the Eagles, they almost used that as their preseason game because the coaches can control it. And then they didn't really play the frontline guys. So I don't know if it'll be different because if Watson doesn't play this week and he doesn't play against the Vikings, I think there's a good chance that he won't play at all because it's hard to believe he'd go out to Seattle and play in the final preseason game. So it'll be interesting. I know they'll use the Vikings practices as kind of like a scrimmage, controlled scrimmage, because the coaches can control it as opposed to in a game, you can control the calls, but there's players out there in the other team trying to make the team, and somebody can try to make a name for themselves and get an unforced, injury due to a late hit or something. So
what are your thoughts and your observations relative to that offense in what you've seen so far? Does it look different? Does it feel different at all?
Well, I mean, my first thought, it is football, and, it does look, last year seemed to think it was looking a lot different. I do think that they're getting the ball out quicker and trying to, whether it be a swing pass or look off a quick hook route or out route, trying to get the ball quickly to one of those receivers by spreading the field. And so I think that's evident what they want to do. Obviously, they're not going to show a lot in the practices or even in the preseason, when we're out there or the fans are out there. And so that is one of the advantages they feel that they have is with a new offense going into the season. They really are being vanilla, but obviously you do have to work on things. So in the little we've seen them work 11 on 11s, we're not allowed to video and so forth, but it looks like they're spreading it out, trying to get the ball into the playmakers' hands quickly. And, that's the other thing. Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, and Elijah Moore. Yesterday was the first day they were all 3 at practice together, and it got moved inside because of bad weather. So, you haven't really been able to see the full complement of what you're expecting to see in the season.
This one's from PFF.com. It's ranking the NFL's top defensive coordinators for 2024. Number 1, they go Steve Spagnuolo of the Chiefs. 2, Vic Fangio of the Eagles, who was a head coach for a couple of years. Then Jim Schwartz is 3. They say Schwartz seems to put together elite defenses at all stops, as he did in Cleveland in 2023. Despite having Myles Garrett, Browns' defense struggled in previous years. Schwartz unlocked the potential of the Cleveland defense in his first season with the team, relying on strong four-man pass rush. Fred, you've seen enough football. Isn't it, and I know the level of competition, the quarterbacks that are playing is ratcheted up. I would expect the defense to be better in year two. They brought back pretty much everybody they wanted. You have a year of familiarity, and I would argue the guys they brought in are actually a little bit better than what they had.
Yeah, I think really the three starters that you lost, at least on paper, the two linebackers, Anthony Walker and Sion Takitaki, and then Jordan Elliott. I don't think they tried hard to really bring any of them back. And so nothing against them, but the linebacker position is kind of not as important in this defense. He really only played three linebackers 16% of the time last year. The two linebackers that are going to be out there the most are JOK and Jordan Hicks. Now, JOK is coming off his best year, 20 tackles for loss, led the team. I really think he can take it to even another level. He didn't play full time until the back half of last season. He's missed a few practices with an unspecified injury, but he was back there yesterday. Jordan Hicks has missed the last practice or two. But I agree. He's been over 100 tackles the last 5 years. He's going to fill the Walker role. He's the captain. He's going to be the green dot. Him and JOK are who you expect to be out there a lot. Then the other guys are filling roles. Devin Bush has had an interception the other day, and they could catch a lightning in a bottle with him, but Tony Fields this is his fourth year. So those guys are the depth. They drafted a rookie in Watson. So the linebackers, and then Jordan Elliott, like I said, they brought back the better two in Shelby Harris and Maurice Hurst. And then you went out and got Quentin Jefferson, who, if he would have been with the Browns last year, he would have been the second leading sack man, because he was only behind Myles Garrett. He had more sacks than anybody else on the Browns did. And I think he's going to be a good player. And Mike Hall, we talked about him. So you have upgraded with more depth, those positions. I do think that, statistically, the Browns, that's what everybody talks about, is they were number one, in the NFL. But what I'm more interested is the amount of points they give up. Last year, they were 13th. They gave up 21.3 a game. The Browns offense, scored about 23 a game, and thus they were 11-6. They have a tougher schedule, but if Schwartz can get them in the top 10 and points allowed, even, I don't care about the other stats. If they could get down under 20 a game, I think the offense will be able to put up enough points, to get into the playoffs and win games. And so, yeah, I do think a blessing in disguise, silver lining, whatever cliche you want, is getting blown out in that playoff game. I think that has really stuck in Jim Schwartz's craw. Of course, he doesn't play, but he reminds them guys every day what they did wrong and how they got embarrassed in that playoff game. They got exposed, and that's one of the reasons they replaced a couple of the linebackers and why they got more guys that they hope to give them inside rush. You just can't have a quarterback not getting pressured. The quarterback was rolling out away from Myles Garrett, and teams are going to do that. So you have to have guys that can go get the quarterback. And I think by adding Jefferson, bringing back Hurst, Harris, Mike Hall, along with Zadarius Smith, I think you can do that.
Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Now I'm going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll talk a little bit about that preseason game coming up Saturday against the Green Bay Packers. Sports4CLE, I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Try C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. So Fred, Kevin Stefanski made it official. Jameis Winston will be the starting quarterback against Green Bay Saturday, which means Watson won't play. Your thoughts, and would you play Watson?
You know, it's one of them in hindsight. He goes out and gets hurt, and then you say no, you know, it was a big mistake. It's rest or rust. That's always the question. You look around the league and it just seems like less and less guys are playing. Now Jordan Love's going to play. You know, when he said the starters are going to play about 10 plays, I don't see what the problem would be to get him out there and let him play a series or two. But, you know, this is kind of how Stefanski.
Could you try again?
This is kind of how Stefanski has done things, you know, in his time with the Browns. And so, you know, all things being said, I can't disagree with, you know, what he's doing. Like I said, the Vikings are coming in next week. If he doesn't play this week, it's hard for me to believe that he would play against the Vikings after practicing against them for a couple of days. So with 3 preseason games, most teams rest their starters in the finals. So I don't know if he'll play in the preseason, to be honest.
So who is the first preseason game important for? So who, you know, when you think about the Packers, who do you think that game is important for the Browns?
Yeah, I mean, really the guys fighting for the team. We've said this many times. This roster is pretty much set. I mean, they have over 40 guys with guaranteed contracts. Now, the injuries always play into that. And so guys are fighting for positions. So I think the third quarterback, Tyler Huntley, DTR, you know, what they're going to do with, you know, with the fourth one, that plays into it. Andrew Berry really has not liked to have more than 2 on the active roster, but they're going to probably need 2 this year. So they're going to have to move one of those guys. And then, you know, some of the guys that are playing in place of the injured ones, you know, there's 6 or 7 starters on defense that are injured or hasn't practiced that probably won't play in this. So, you know, you got the second team guys that are battling for those first backup positions. And, you know, you look at some of the linebackers, you look at some of the draft picks, you know, Jamari Thrash, you know, he's going to have a chance to show what he can do. David Bell, Cedric Tillman, some of the guys that haven't been in prominent roles. Running backs, you know, I don't know if Dante Foreman will play, but and Nyheim Hines is still out. So Pierre Strong and Jerome Ford and Aiden Robbins, John Kelly running the ball. And, you know, so I think it's going to be depth. It always is. Unfortunately, most of the guys playing in the preseason aren't on the team in the when it comes regular season. And I think it'll be all the more with this Browns roster because right now you have 90 guys. And I really think there's only maybe 8 to 10 spots open to make the team. So I think, and then of course you got 16 on the practice squad. So it'll be competitive, but as it always, it'll be the younger guys playing the bulk of the game and trying to make a name for themselves.
Do you think the offense, do they kind of tone it down a little bit, the new offense? And are we going to, I would assume we're still going to see a lot of shotgun. You have to work on some of the timing of that, right?
Yeah, if Winston's going to start, you're going to give him some work, you know, but I don't think it's going to be very, you know, any end arounds or anything that they may do in the season, you know, other than basic, you know, coverages. Most of the coaches' philosophy going into these games are get in, get out, keep the injuries to a minimum. They play them because they have to play them. But it's important, obviously, for the players trying to make the team. They never know their opportunities, so they're all going to give everything they have. And, but no, I don't expect it. That's why preseason games are so hard to watch and cover, just because you're really watching guys that aren't going to be on the team, when it comes to the season. But it's all that lottery shot. One guy establishes himself, and that's what a Matt Landers is trying to do. You had Austin Watkins, it didn't last too long for him, but he made the team or made the practice squad out of nowhere because of that a year ago.
What are you paying attention to? So when you watch this, what do you want to see, I guess, to feel, all right, they're at least headed in the right direction?
Yeah, mostly just looking for some of the depth guys, see what steps maybe a Ronnie Hickman made, second year back, see if, some of those second year guys. I want to see if Siaki Ika, has a chance. He didn't play last year. Can he be in the rotation, or is he on his way out? Jawan Briggs, might be battling with him for a spot. Mike Hall. A lot of these young guys, are going to get their chance. Zach Zinner, is he the future, right or left guard? Just a lot of the young guys I like to focus in and see what they look like when the lights come on their first NFL game, even if it's a preseason.
Fred Greetham, senior analyst from the Orange and Brown Report. As always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Fred.
Thanks for having me, Dave. Have a great day.
Fred Greetham, make sure you check him out. Always really insightful stuff. Senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report, always has Greetham's angle. Make sure you check it out on the Orange and Brown Report. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE, and we will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.